It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has said that the inauguration of Iran's desalination plant is an important step in the implementation of an integrated system of 5 plants, which reflects the new Algeria's capacity of meeting challenges in record time and with local force. At the G20 summit in Johannesburg, Algeria has expressed concern about the growing phenomenon of violating international law, warning against the perpetuation of the blatant injustices that prevail in the world, particularly in Palestine and Western Sahara. And the final declaration of the recommendations of the National Conference for the Reconstruction of the State of Niger has proposed the renewal of a 5-year transition period. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has inaugurated Algeria's biggest seawater desalination plant located at Cap Blanc in Oran, which is considered an important step in the implementation of a vast plan aimed at creating an integrated system of 5 plants, thus reflecting the strong example of the new Algeria capable of meeting challenges in record time and with its local forces. The head of state emphasized that, as he personally pledged, whenever there is an opportunity to build a seawater desalination plant on the Algerian coast, he will do so. President Tebboune reaffirmed that when he speaks about Algeria as a striking power, it is a real striking power and not just words of mouth. He thanked the children of Algeria who lived up to the mission, allowing Algeria to reach an advanced technical and technological level in the field of seawater desalination that can also benefit sister countries and other peoples. Let's listen to the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune.
محطة هذه نتاع رأس الأبيض هي أولى من سلسلة تاع عدة محطات، 5 محطات إن شاء الله في ظرف هذه 5 أيام ندشنوهم كل واحدة بوحدة، وستليها محطات أخرى مثل ما التزمت أنا كل ما تكون لي مناسبة أن ننجز محطة تحلية بحر على الشواطئ الجزائرية سنفعل إن شاء الله. عندنا الإمكانيات، عندنا الرجال بالأخص. الجزائر قوة ضاربة، فهي قوة ضاربة بالفعل مش باللسان. شاكرهم لأن أعطيناهم توجيهات صح كما يقولوا بالعامة داروا النيف، يعني خدموا 7 أيام على 7 أيام 24 ساعة على 24 ساعة، تقنيات تقريب جديدة عليهم ولكن كانوا في مستوى التحدي. هذا اللي خلى الجزائر اليوم وصلت إلى درجة من التقنية والتكنولوجيا في تحلية مياه البحر اللي ممكن تفيد بها الأشقاء وتفيد بها الشعوب الأخرى.
The President of the Republic stressed that every year Algeria enters a new era of technologies and techniques in record time, stressing that at the beginning of independence it was difficult to dig deep wells, but today there are great achievements made using the most modern technologies. President Tebboune said that anyone who has not worked in construction sites cannot understand the value of this miracle.
ربما كذلك هو أن الجزائر مستقلة من أين انطلقت وإلى أين وصلت، يعني كل سنة وجزء من السنة ندخل في عالم آخر، تكنولوجيا وتقنيات. ربما في وقت فات في بداية الاستقلال كان صعب حتى حفر آبار عميقة، اليوم يعني تجاوزنا إلى مرحلة الإنجاز بالسرعة وبالتكنولوجيا الكافية، بحيث وضعنا الحجر الأساس لهذا المشروع العملاق منذ 25 شهر ولا أقل، واليوم لنا الشرف باسم الجزائريات والجزائريين، باسم الجزائر المستقلة، جزائر تحدي، جزائر المنتصرة، أننا ندشن في ظرف 26 شهر. راه الإنسان اللي ما مارسش في الورشات ما يعرفش قيمة تاع هذا المعجزة بحد ذاتها.
Speaking about the throughput of the Oran plant, the head of state said that 300,000 cubic meters equals 300 million liters, which is a huge quantity of water produced daily. He stressed that this ushers in a good future to overcome water scarcity in Algeria.
نبسط أنا عارف 300 ألف متر مكعب، يعني 300 مليون لتر يوميا. يعني converti en litres, ça donne énormément d'eau. الحمد لله. أنا بالنسبة لي هذه مدرسة حقيقية للوطنية. الحمد لله يعني اللي وصلنا اليوم بأبناء الجزائر وبنات الجزائر نوصل لإنشاء مشاريع مثل هذه يعني
كفاءة وطنية جزائرية.
الحمد لله الحمد لله يعني مستقبل يبشر بالخير بالنسبة للتغلب نهائيا على ندرة المياه في الولاية تاعنا.
In this respect, the CEO of Sonatrach, Rashid Hashishi, said during a presentation on the Uran desalination plant that the integration rate of national products in seawater desalination plants had reached 30%. He pointed out that 5 desalination plants built under the president's emergency plan were built using 100% Algerian skills. It's worth recalling that this ambitious project involves the construction of 5 desalination plants in the provinces of El Tarf, Bajaya, Boumerdès, Tipaza and Oran, and at an estimated cost of around $2.4 billion. This infrastructure will increase the national production of drinking water from 2.2 million cubic meters per day to 3.7 million cubic meters per day. The new plants, each with a capacity of 300,000 cubic meters per day, will supply 15 million people with drinking water. The G20 ministerial meeting chaired by South Africa is continuing for the second and final day in the city of Johannesburg. The opening ceremony was chaired by the President of the Republic of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, who took the opportunity to deliver a speech in which he presented his country's vision of the future of global governance and its proposal in the face of the growing challenges facing the world. The meeting was held in the presence of the Minister of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad, and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, who stressed that Algeria is deeply convinced that international law, multilateralism, and the United Nations are the most precious achievements of humanity in the last 8 decades, calling on the G20 to play the role of driving force in promoting the rehabilitation of international law. Let's listen to Mr. Attaf.
Algeria firmly believes that international law, multilateralism, and the United Nations remain the most precious achievements that mankind has ever made during the last 8 decades. They represent the symbols of civilization prevailing over anarchy and lawlessness. Letting the attempts of breaking down this most sacred heritage of mankind is, in our view, a bet on the worst, not on the common good. We therefore call on the G20 to be a driving force in reinvigorating international law, in revitalizing multilateralism, and last but not least, in empowering the United Nations and ensuring that it ably fulfills its vital, crucial, and most indispensable role.
The Algerian foreign minister expressed Algeria's concern about the growing phenomenon of violating international law, warning against the perpetuation of the blatant injustices that prevail in the world, particularly in Palestine and Western Sahara.
In today's world, we are extremely worried about the growing pattern of disregarding, undermining, and even violating international law, especially when it comes to relations between the powerful and the powerless among nations. We are equally worried about the increasing tendency to impose might at the expense of right and to perpetuate situations of blatant injustices in Palestine, in Western Sahara, and in many other parts of the world, particularly in Africa. And we are finally worried about the rising inclination towards weakening multilateralism and sidelining the vital role of universal organizations, notably the United Nations.
The Algerian diplomacy chief also underlined that times of great turbulence call for competent leadership, expressing confidence that South Africa fully meets this condition and that it will make a significant contribution to meeting the growing challenges facing the world today.
Times of great turmoil require great leadership. We are fully confident that South Africa meets this requirement and that it will help this gathering navigate successfully through the mounting challenges our world is currently facing. As we prepare to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the United Nations, we all witness the emergence of alarming developments that breed instability and threaten the very foundations of the international system.
Meanwhile, on the sidelines of the first day of the G20 summit or ministerial meeting, the Algerian foreign minister met in Johannesburg with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, Sergei Lavrov. Both ministers welcomed the conclusions of the joint Algerian-Russian Commission held at the end of January in Algiers and agreed to continue efforts to strengthen the Algerian-Russian strategic partnership, particularly in the economic and commercial fields, in accordance with the guidelines of the leaders of both countries. Now, the Speaker of the National People's Assembly, Brahim Boughali, has received in Algiers the head of the European Union delegation to Algeria, Ambassador Diego Mellado Pasqua, says a press release from the APN. Brahim Boughali praised the level of relations between Algeria and the European Union dating back to 46 years, noting that Algeria, since the accession of Abdelmadjid Tebboune to the country's supreme magistracy, has embarked on a new path of economic relations with the EU and all its partners in response to new economic data designed to strengthen the win-win principle of bilateral relations. The proceedings of the 19th session of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean, PAM, kicked off Thursday in Rome, Italy, with the participation of 300 delegates from national parliaments on both shores of the Mediterranean, several international and regional organizations and experts from academic circles, according to a press release from the Council of the Nation. To the Middle East now, where the International Rescue Committee IRC has warned that the intensification of attacks by the Zionist occupation army in the occupied West Bank is having a devastating impact on children's lives and preventing the delivery of vital aid. In a statement published on its website, the IRC warns that since the entry into force of the ceasefire in Gaza, the rising Zionist military violence in the West Bank has killed at least 224 children. This upsurge in violence has caused deep trauma and prevent the IRC and its partners from responding to the growing needs in Jenin, one of the worst affected areas. Said Boughaz has more details in this report.
The statement notes that since January this year, the IRC and the Palestinian organization Teacher Creativity Center have been forced to suspend their educational activities in Jenin. The suspension of programs in schools in the city of Jenin is part of a wider educational crisis affecting Palestinian children in the West Bank and Gaza. The source added that in Gaza, despite the ceasefire, 658,000 school-age children still have no access to formal education, and nearly 90% of schools have been destroyed, damaged, or used as shelters. Meanwhile, the deadly operations underway in the West Bank, notably in Jenin, Tulkarem, and Tubas, have displaced thousands of people, destroyed water networks, and restricted movement. More than 90% of the residents of the Jenin refugee camp, that is more than 20,000 people, have fled in the last 2 months. Rifat Sabah, managing director, said that for children in crisis situations, education is more than just learning. It is a lifeline to stability, hope, and recovery, while providing much-needed safe spaces. For her part, Zoe Daniels, director of the IRC in the occupied Palestinian territories, said while a fragile ceasefire is in place in Gaza, children in the West Bank face increasing levels of violence, displacement, and deep trauma. She concluded by saying civilians, schools, and essential infrastructure must never be targeted. The international community must take its responsibility, hold those responsible to account, and take urgent action to prevent further damage.
And the final declaration of the recommendations of the National Conference for the Reconstruction of the State of Niger has proposed a renewed transition period of 5 years. Said Boughaz has more.
The chairman of the National Commission for the Refoundation of the State, Mamadou Harouna Djingare, read out the recommendations of the national meeting and said that the transition period in Niger had been set at 60 months, renewable depending on developments in the country's political and security situation. The recommendations also focused on maintaining the republican nature of the state, as well as its democratic and social character, and consequently conferring on the President of the National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland, Abdurrahman Tiani, the title of President of the Republic, Head of State. The recommendations also include the dissolution of existing political parties and the drafting of a new political party charter. It was also proposed to adopt a refoundation charter in place of the transition charter, the preliminary draft of which has been finalized and which essentially includes the refoundation bodies, the values, principles and missions of the refoundation, as well as the conditions for revising the refoundation statute. With regard to the economy and sustainable development, the communiqué called for the main guidelines to be laid down for the exploitation, control and optimal and transparent management of Niger's natural resources, in addition to proposing inclusive financing mechanisms for major development projects. The recommendations also focused on reforming the current monetary system in order to boost economic growth. There was also the need to create a court to punish economic offenses and corruption, in addition to setting up a mechanism to promote integrity. With regard to justice and human rights, participants stressed the importance of an independent judiciary, of bringing criminals to justice, and of the quest for global justice and genuine national reconciliation. In his speech, the President of the National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland, Abdurrahman Tiani, praised the rigorous and professional organization of the conference and thanked all the officials and organizers, particularly the defense forces, who had been able to provide total security throughout the proceedings.
That's the end of our news bulletin for today. Time now for our weekly programs. As for me, I'll meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin. Thank you.
Our Talk, a weekly program with guests activated in different fields.
Hello there and welcome to our program, Our Talk. The DeepSeek Hangzhou AI startup shook up the world of AI by making public on January 20th freely accessible large language models that claim to compete in performance with those of major AI companies. These models require significantly fewer computing resources to deliver results to user requests. This development has sent the financial markets and investors in the AI sector into frenzy, prompting questions about the resources needed for innovation, especially after the U.S. immense amount of investment in AI. To talk more about the booming AI app, we have with us Ms. Kun Liu, host of CGTN Radio, former Washington correspondent with the China Media Group, who is joining us from Beijing. Ms. Kun Liu, can you provide an overview of the DeepSeek AI app?
Well, DeepSeek was founded in 2023 by Liang Wenfeng, co-founder of Highflyer, a quantitative hedge fund focused on AI. The AI startup reportedly grew out of the hedge fund's AI research unit in April 2023 to focus on large language models and reaching artificial general intelligence, or AGI. That is a branch of AI that equals or surpasses human intellect on a wide range of tasks, which OpenAI and its rivals say they are fast pursuing. The DeepSeek mobile app soared onto the top of the US iPhone download charts after its release this month. DeepSeek said that its R1 release performs on par with OpenAI, and several third-party tests have found that DeepSeek actually outperforms OpenAI's latest model. So what really rattled the US market is DeepSeek's R1 was built despite the US curbing chip exports to China 3 times in 3 years. Estimates differ on exactly how much DeepSeek's R1 costs, how many GPUs actually went into it. But analysts at investment bank Jefferies estimated that a recent version had a training cost of only $5.6 million. Regardless of the specific numbers, reports agree that the model was developed at only a fraction of the cost of rival models by OpenAI, Google, and others. Another significant aspect of DeepSeek is that its code is open source. This means that unlike proprietary AI solutions, anyone can access, modify, and deploy the technology.
The rapid growth of the DeepSeek startup in less than 2 years, with investment of only $6 million demonstrates that technological advancement, particularly in AI, requires more than just a substantial budget. What are some other key factors that contribute to the successful development of AI beyond financial resources?
So I can talk about the factors that might have contributed to the development of AI in China's case. So for China, I think 3 reasons may have contributed to the development progress in this area: efficient resource utilization, also policy planning, and building AI talent pool. So Chinese AI achievements are largely possible because of advanced software innovation and efficiency techniques that actually maximize computational output while minimizing hardware requirements. So despite the restrictions to cutting-edge NVIDIA GPUs, Chinese AI labs have been able to produce world-class models, illustrating the importance of algorithm innovation in overcoming hardware limitations. The second factor is that the Chinese government has been planning on this for a long time. Following the 2016-13 5-year plan for the development of strategic emerging industries, that was back in 2016, China's State Council tabled the quote-unquote New Generation AI Development Plan in 2017, which set overall targets to be achieved by 2020, 2025, and 2030. So this has been going on for quite a while. And the third factor, China's vast AI talent pool has been another critical factor for the industry to remain competitive. So with a growing number of these top AI researchers surpassing even the United States, the country is home to steadily attract expertise and innovation. And the Chinese AI community also widely embraced open source principles.
Ms. Liu, what does the ability of Chinese tech firms to quickly adapt to stringent regulations, such as the ban on exporting advanced chips to China, indicate about the Chinese tech industry?
Well, it is worth pointing out that the DeepSeek success was built on the achievements already done by U.S. companies. For the moment, the U.S. export controls aiming to limit the scale and efficiency of AI training by reducing access to advanced chips, for China, are still creating obstacles for Chinese firms developing large-scale models. However, China's ability to turn these semiconductor restrictions into opportunities for innovation actually are signaling that the industry's growing resilience and adaptability in the face of these geopolitical challenges.
Ms. Kun Liu, host of CGTN Radio and former Washington correspondent with China Media Group, thank you so much for being with us. Hello and good to have you with us in our program devoted to Algerian figures and personalities who marked history, notably in arts. Today we shed light on talented Algerian artist Mohamed Rassim, the founder of the School of Miniature Painting that still exists in Algeria today. Visitors to Algiers art museums, such as the magnificent National Gallery of Fine Arts in Algiers, are likely to come across the works of Mohamed Rassim. In Algeria and perhaps in most parts of the world, we cannot think of the past century's art of miniature without mentioning him, the father of Algerian miniature painter and calligrapher. In addition to being an accomplished artist, Mohamed Rassim was known for using his art to promote pride in his fellow Algerians and to encourage them to pursue independence during the time when the country was French territory. Born in Algiers on the 24th of June, 1896, Mohamed Rassim was born into an artist's family, and his talent for drawing was revealed during his primary school education when he was given the task of copying decorative Islamic motifs during a state workshop organized by the then French Governor-General of Algeria, Charles Jonnart. Originally of Turkish descent, the family's property was confiscated by the French regime. Undaunted, Rassim's father established a copper working and wood carving workshop in the Casbah of Algiers. There, his brother, Omar Rassim, carried out the engraving of decorative tombstones, which led to the family being commissioned to embellish public buildings during French colonial rule. Rassim enjoyed traveling around the world, notably to enrich his style by the history of miniature. He visited Paris, Cordoba, and Grenada, where the art of miniature was flourishing. He then went to Rome, Vienna, Bucharest, and Stockholm, where he exhibited some of his works. At the Museum Gallieni in Paris, he had his first exhibition. The public showed enthusiasm, and the art critics praised his work, thus gaining international fame. Besides teaching at the school he founded, Rassim worked with commissions to safeguard the historic sites and monuments, notably the Casbah of Algiers, listed as World Heritage by the UNESCO. Upon discovering miniature paintings created by Persian, Mughal, and Andalusian artists for Muslim nobility, Rassim embraced his style of painting, adding his own artistic expression, including traditional motifs and calligraphic forms. During his teenage years, Rassim came in contact and befriended French Orientalist painter Nasreddin Dine, who encouraged his talent and assisted him in obtaining commissions to embellish books with his superbly crafted calligraphic plates. His ability to artistically recreate an era prior to the arrival of the French colonists made Mohamed Rassim a prominent figure in the Algerian culture. In his works, the people of Algeria are depicted in fine clothing and are engaged in cultural activities, indicating a high level of prosperity, which some critics saw as a suggestion that these were lost when the French arrived. However, Rassim was known to acknowledge that his work had come about because of the presence of the French in Algeria. Whatever his motivation or the interpretation of his work by others, Mohamed Rassim's artistic talent is clearly evident in his work. It's worth mentioning that Rassim made the ornamentations of several of his friend Nasreddin Etienne Dine's books, including Muhammad's Life. He also created the decorations of Mardus' Arabian Nights, very famous, and Mohamed Rassim received several awards, such as a scholarship from La Casa de Velázquez, the gold medal from the Society of French Orientalist Painters, and the Grand Prix Artistique of Algeria.